to order everybody down onto the ground. We've been seeing a lot of shock from our community about the ages of the suspects.
A violent bank robbery in Markham captured on security cameras. Police allege one of the armed robbers is just 13 years old. Police say the robbers stabbed 2 bank employees. You can see customers fleeing on the security video. The level of violence surprised investigators, as did the ages of the alleged thieves. Alicia Son now with the latest.
Everything looks normal until 3 guys in hoodies run into the bank just before closing time. A lucky customer escapes before things get violent. While the others rough up the tellers demanding cash, one of them walks around with a gun. A woman sitting in her car sees it all happen. She gets out, walks to another business in the plaza, and calls 911.
We were on the scene within minutes thanks to that concerned citizen calling it in.
But the suspects were inside long enough to stab 2 employees during the holdup, assault 2 others, kicking them in the face when they were down. One of them was a woman. The suspects fled on foot, and they ended up here, hiding out in one of these townhomes under construction. I would say if you were running at full speed, which these guys definitely were, you could get here within about 2 minutes, and the police weren't far behind.
We utilized our emergency response unit as well as our canine unit, as well as a helicopter from Durham Regional Police. And again, we were able to successfully follow where they had gone and locate them hiding inside the construction area.
Luckily, the injured staff are going to be okay. The 3 people charged are just 13, 15, and 16 years old.
Despite their young ages, these are very serious charges that these individuals are facing.
Like robbery with a firearm, aggravated assault, and the car they arrived in had been stolen in Toronto a week prior. Are we seeing lots of bank robberies happen in the region?
Unfortunately, we've seen a very significant increase in York Region and certainly elsewhere in the GTA. What I can say is we've had more this year in 2020, so only in these just January and February, than what we've had in an entire year in the past.
There's a multi-jurisdictional investigation into why that is.
Most of the cases that we've had, the suspects go into the bank, whether they actually obtain money or not, they typically leave without causing any physical injuries to anyone. In this case, it's very shocking.
The bank is closed today as the investigation continues and the victims recover in hospital. Alicia Son, CBC News, Markham.
To a CBC News investigation now, we've been examining how easy it is for adults to get their hands on child Presto cards. The TTC says those improperly used cards are costing them millions in lost fares every year. Farah Morelli joins us live now from King and University. And Farah, lots of people profiting off the sale of these cards.
Lots, Dwight, and lots of people also charging a premium for these cards, but not a whole lot being done to crack down on their sales. These cards are being marketed as offering unlimited rides, and it was easy for me to find an ad, buy a card today that would offer me free rides on the subway or on streetcars.
It doesn't take much to find a child Presto card for sale online. A quick search came up with nearly 10 ads. And it wasn't hard getting someone to meet us.
So yesterday I reached out to somebody on Craigslist who was advertising a child Presto card for sale. He got back to me and agreed to meet me at noon today here at Finch Station. He's going to be selling me 2 child cards for $150. We're just waiting to meet him now.
The seller said he'd call me from a payphone in the passenger pickup area. After the call, we were to meet in the outside area for the exchange.
These are the Presto cards?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So how does it work?
Like they're unlimited, they work like all day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are they kids cards, or like how does it work?
Like it's just like unlimited taps. Like it works all day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it because they're kids cards? Or
Yeah, because it's usually like when I had these cards for a little bit over like a year or so, and then you save like a couple of $1,000.
I asked him to show me how they worked, so we walked down into Finch Station. After proving they were child cards at a machine downstairs, we started the transaction.
Do you have more?
Yeah, I could get some more.
You get some more cards? Okay. So this is 150.
Yeah. You need some more, or you're good for now?
I think I'm good for now. So these are the 2 child cards. Okay.
You need some more, just let me know.
So these here are the 2 child Presto cards that I just bought. As you can see, they look exactly like my adult card, except for the fact when I put these in the machine, you'll say, it clearly says child. Now these cards will allow me to ride on the TTC anywhere I want for free.
All right, Farah, what's the TTC saying about all of this? Because it was so easy for you to find this person.
It was, Dwight. So I had a chance to speak to Stuart Green with the TTC today, and what he told me is that they are aware of these ads and that they monitor them when they see them to the listing sites like Craigslist or Facebook. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot they can do.
We report them as soon as we see them, but unfortunately people continue to do this. But the bottom line is that it's the use of these cards is the fraudulent activity. Shoppers has direction on how to sell these cards, how to issue the child card properly. But if people are collecting them and selling them fraudulently and then using them fraudulently, that's where the offense is for us.
Now, one of the things I also looked at today was the point of sales. I had a chance to speak with Metrolinx, which works with TTC on the point of sales where these child cards are being sold. And the issue of changing the rules for how they're sold is that they're sold at multiple Shoppers Drug Mart's locations. So even if you were a parent with a kid, you could go to one Shoppers Drug Mart and buy a child card and then go to another one. So there's a whole lot to consider when it comes to changing the system. We know the TTC is, of course, taking the next 30 days to do what it's called a feasibility study to try and figure out how to combat this problem because it's not going away.
Yeah, it is not. Thank you for that, Farah. 2 million Ontario students and nearly 200,000 teachers and education workers will be out of class tomorrow for the first time in decades. All 4 major education unions will be on strike on the same day. Lorinda Redekop has the latest now from Queen's Park.
I mean, it's historic and not in a good way that we have what's happening tomorrow unfolding.
This was the last time all the province's teachers were on strike at the same time, way back in 1997. Once again, they're expected to pack the grounds in front of Queen's Park. The opposition blames the province for not being able to settle these labor disputes.
Literally 2 million students out of the classroom, hundreds of thousands of education workers and teachers and parents picketing against the government's decision. That should be the message for the government to back away from those cuts and move things along at the bargaining table.
Bargaining continued for a second day in a row today with both the Catholic teachers and those in the French system. In a statement, the Union for French Teachers said it made very little progress with the government yesterday, and it called its bargaining with the school boards another wasted day. Both unions will be part of the strikes tomorrow.
What is unhelpful is that while we're negotiating, that this escalation continues. But at the end of the day, I just hope that we can hunker down and, as I've said clearly, redouble our efforts to provide stability, get a deal that is good for students and taxpayers.
The education minister pointed to salaries as the issue, saying they make up 80% of education funding. The premier tried to emphasize that the government is investing, though funding per student is lower, with cuts to teacher positions.
We will continue to invest in more priorities that parents want. Parents want us to focus on math, on STEM, and on mental health. And that's exactly where the money is going, to the classrooms, to the students. That's what they want.
All sides say they want teachers and kids back in class, but they seem far apart on how that should happen. The Secondary School Teachers Union has gone the longest without any bargaining days. It hasn't met with the province for more than 2 months. Lorinda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
So as you heard, thousands of teachers and education workers are expected at Queen's Park tomorrow morning as part of a province-wide walkout. It is the first time all 4 major unions have striked on the same day since 1997. We will be there live for you with coverage. At noon, I will be at Queen's Park talking to union leaders and stakeholders from all sides. You can watch it on our website at cbc.ca/Toronto, on the CBC News app, or on our Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube accounts. That is tomorrow at noon. After days of controversy, the provincial government says they'll replace any of the newly issued license plates with what they're calling an enhanced version. In a statement released today, they say they are working with 3M to develop the new plates, and they expect they'll be available in less than 3 weeks. For Ontarians who receive plates already, a new plate will be mailed to them. The government goes on to say that they have been clear to 3M Canada that the expectation is they will cover the cost of the replacement license plates. This all comes amid numerous complaints that the plates are almost impossible to read in low light. A week from today, thousands of the city's outside workers could be off the job. Today, the city announced its contingency plans should that happen, including how it will deal with no garbage collection.
For the first week, residential customers would be asked to divide and securely store waste while we establish temporary drop-off depots that will be cleared and cleaned routinely.
Next Thursday, 5,000 outside workers will be in a legal strike position. The city will also be in a position to lock them out. As mentioned, that would impact garbage and recycling collection, but only east of Yonge. City rec centers, pools, arenas, and outdoor ice rinks would close. The city says talks continue in hopes of averting a labor disruption. Some developments today in the dispute over a gas pipeline in northern BC. The RCMP is offering to move from their current location on a road in Wet'suwet'en territory to a nearby town. And CN in Quebec has an injunction to clear the rail of a blockade of pipeline protesters. Julie Van Duzen now with more.
Nerves are getting frayed at a rail blockade on the south shore of Montreal. This resident pleads for protesters to leave.
No, you're blocking billions of dollars of our economy.
The Premier of Quebec says the protest is not on First Nations land, and the province's police force is prepared to enforce an injunction to move protesters away.
This blockade is illegal. It has a major impact on our economy, on life of people. Right now, some people are losing their job.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continues to face pressure from everywhere to end the chaos.
We're working very hard to end the blockades. It's an unacceptable situation.
In an effort to end the standoff, the British Columbia RCMP in the Wet'suwet'en territory has offered to move from the protest site to the nearby town of Euston.
I'm very hopeful that that will satisfy the concerns that were raised.
The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs are against the Coastal GasLink pipeline. They also want the RCMP out of their territory. It's not clear if the RCMP move would make a difference. In solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en, the Mohawk near Belleville, Ontario, have maintained a protest camp for 15 days. It's brought rail traffic to a halt. The Mohawk are expecting a thank you visit soon from the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs. No word if the Wet'suwet'en will meet with the federal government.
Mr. Bennett and I stand ready to go on a moment's notice, absolutely. Our expectation is that those discussions can be had over the course of tomorrow, as early as tomorrow morning.
In the Commons, the Conservatives continued their demand that the government forget the dialogue and act.
Can the Prime Minister tell us on what day these illegal blockades will come down?
The government agrees it's time for the barricades to come down in a peaceful way, but there's still no sense of when that might happen. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Are the Leafs' playoff hopes slipping away? Many fans seem to think so. I'm Greg Ross. With 3 losses in their last 4 games and the Leafs currently sitting out of a playoff position, many fans are wondering, where's the sense of urgency from the players? We'll have more on that coming up.
It's too sad, Nick. Let's not talk about the Leafs, but he just gets straight to the weather.
Yeah, I know. Where do we even begin with this? Okay, straight to the weather. Well, it's actually not much better news right now. Temperatures are on the cold side. Today we hit -5 degrees. We're sitting at -7, -8 degrees across the region with the winds. Feels closer to about -12, -13. But the bright side in all of this, it actually is changing heading into the weekend. In fact, even tomorrow, we're looking at some warmer weather on the way. Now, winds starting to come down a little bit. When I spoke to you yesterday, we still had wind gusts up to about 40 kilometers per hour. Right now, we still got a northwesterly wind of about 20 kilometers per hour, give or take. Not much in the way of wind gusts, up to maybe about 30 kilometers per hour in the city of Toronto. Those will sort of peter out through tonight. Speaking of petering out, the snow squalls that we had yesterday also kind of dying off here. We've got some snow squall warnings still in effect just to the north of the GTA, but I expect those to be dropped at least into the evening hours tonight. And then as we move through tomorrow, we've got generally clear skies. In fact, following -11 tonight with a wind chill of -19, tomorrow we're looking at a high of 1 degree. And that, by the way, is the coldest of the next 5 days. We've also got a fair bit of sunshine as well heading into the weekend. How's that for a tease, Dwight?
We like it. Thank you, Nick.
You bet.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
It's been a rough new year for our Toronto Maple Leafs. Actually, it's been a rough 5 decades, but we won't get into that right now. In January, the team won 5 games and lost 6. This month, they've only won 4 so far. And last night, the team was bumped out of a playoff spot. Greg Ross is live at Scotiabank Arena, where the Leafs are getting ready to host the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight. And Greg, the Leafs will definitely need a better effort than the last time these two teams met.
They will, Dwight. That was just 2 nights ago, Tuesday night in Pittsburgh, a night that Sidney Crosby had a goal and 3 assists as the Pittsburgh Penguins really laid a beating on the Leafs that night. Crosby loves playing against the Leafs. There's no doubt about it. 63 points in 44 career games. Loves playing here in Toronto. We'll get another crack at it tonight. But, you know, let's face it, this latest string of tough losses for the Leafs now has some wondering if the Leafs are going to have a chance to make the playoffs.
I think we should start panicking. There's not that many games left.
I'm worried. If I said I wasn't worried, I'd be lying.
I have a feeling we're going to miss the playoffs, yeah. I'm hoping we turn around. I got hope, but I don't know. It's a little bleak.
Not surprisingly, Leaf fans are having doubts after recent performances like this one Tuesday night in Pittsburgh.
Here's Crosby for McCann. Pass across. Hornqvist to Crosby. He scores!
The Leafs lost 5-2 to the Penguins, and now they find themselves on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoff race.
Well, I mean, the highs are high and the lows are low in a city like this.
Pass across, score!
And this is certainly a low point for the team, something they are feeling in the dressing room.
It's an additional challenge, and there is noise and attention, but that's part of the beauty of being here, is that people care.
I think it's tough. We're getting criticized. You know, but that's part of the game. I think that when you don't win games, you open yourself up to criticism.
Crosby with a chance, wide open net, scores!
One of the biggest knocks against the Leafs recently is a lack of desperation with their playoff hopes in jeopardy.
No urgency. They're not responding. They're definitely not playing the way they could be playing.
I don't think they're putting in the effort and the urgency and the desperation that they need to play with. I don't see it.
5-2 victory on the...
But the players insist this is not the case.
Is there a sense of urgency right now in this room? Absolutely. And I think there's no doubt that we're trying. Obviously, we have to be a lot better, and we have higher standards than what we've been playing at and the results we've been getting.
And if the results continue to go the way they have been, some fans say they're ready to give up.
I think it needs to be like in other cities that they just don't show up if we're not playing well. And the Leafs certainly aren't playing well right now.
I don't know how much support she's going to get on that, but another option that fans are talking about is maybe the Leafs can improve their situation via trade. They just made a move. They picked up Dennis Malgin from the Florida Panthers. Not sure how much he's going to help in the lineup, but the trade deadline, Dwight, is Monday, so they still have at least a few days to try and make a big move to try and get this thing back on track.
I have to agree with the lady in your story there, Greg. If we keep filling the stands, they're not going to fix this team. Thank you, buddy. The wait is finally over. Hundreds of Canadian passengers from the Diamond Princess are heading home after testing negative for coronavirus.
They will be monitored for symptoms along the journey and obviously through the processing at Trenton.
We'll hear more about their journey home after being quarantined for 15 days coming up after the break. Ontario health officials reporting today the first person diagnosed with COVID-19 in the province is now free of the virus.
And that means that they have had 2 consecutive negative tests, at least 24 hours apart.
The Toronto man became ill after returning from a trip to China. His wife was also diagnosed with COVID-19. She remains in self-isolation and is expected to be cleared soon. Overseas, health officials are paying close attention tonight to cases of COVID-19 in South Korea. The country has reported a recent spike with 104 confirmed cases now. Many of the new cases are connected to a person who attended church services while infected. Authorities are preparing for the homecoming of Canadians who were quarantined on that cruise ship in Japan. People who tested negative for the coronavirus have boarded a plane chartered by Ottawa and are on their way to CFB Trenton. Sasha Petrusik has more.
There are some 200 Canadians who are headed to Canada. They're going to reach Trenton, Ontario. They're going to be then bused to Cornwall, just near the Quebec border, and there they're going to spend another 2 weeks in quarantine. Now, all of these people are healthy. They've been tested. They do not have the virus, and they also were checked earlier today by Canadian medics. But for many of them, this is a very unsafe facility. This ship here that they've spent the last 2 weeks on, they were afraid of it, and they wanted to get out of it as quickly as they could because they felt that the infection was coming. And indeed, there has been an explosion of infections on that ship over the past 14 or 15 days. It started with 1 case. Now there are more than 600. And we are hearing now that the first 2 deaths have also occurred among people who were infected on the ship. 2 Japanese people, a man who is 87 years old, a woman who's 84 years old. Both of them had other health issues, and that made them particularly vulnerable. But, you know, everybody in a way is vulnerable, and we've heard that others have died as well who are not that old and not susceptible in the same ways. So the Canadians who left today were very, very worried. They didn't want to spend another moment here, and now they're on their way home. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Yokohama.
They are following the money to fight against one of Canada's fastest growing crimes.
When you follow the money, you see where it ends up and you see who's in control of that situation, who might be a suspected trafficker.
We get exclusive access to how authorities track transactions to find human traffickers. That story after the break. Stay with us. Human trafficking is one of the fastest growing crimes in Canada. Police are getting help from survivors to combat it. Now financial experts are also following the money trail. Thomas Dagley got rare access to Project Protect.
Who would guess? High above downtown Ottawa, there's a secretive federal agency targeting shadowy crime and the money behind it. Their work has gone unseen until now. Never before have they allowed cameras inside for a look at this.
What we're seeing on the left screen here is an example of a suspicious transaction report. There were cash deposits being
Canada's Financial Intelligence Unit, FinTrack, flags to police signs of suspected money laundering for sex trafficking. Those email addresses and aliases could be hiding women held against their will.
This individual had almost $200,000 in cash deposits. Many of these deposits occurred between 12 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. So irregular banking hours that you don't necessarily see.
Red flag number one.
There you go.
An intelligence analyst is showing us a real string of dubious transactions.
Travel-related purchases, hotel-related purchases.
We've agreed to conceal her name given the sensitive nature of her work, helping identify suspected traffickers and support their victims.
What black and white financial intelligence can do is corroborate their testimony.
Human trafficking leaves a money trail, and experts know what to look for. Like lingerie purchases, motel rooms booked for several nights, and constant one-way travel, not to mention big cash deposits late at night. Banks and other institutions make the disclosures, then FinTrack helps connect the dots. It's known as Project Protect, the brainchild of Barry McKillop.
We can identify who's got the bank account, who's putting money in the bank account, how the actual network is working, and sometimes who is actually the key point in that network.
Just by following the money.
Just by following the money.
It's happening here in our own backyard.
Project Protect started with a plea from trafficking survivor Tumea Nagy. In 2015, she was left fuming after the prosecution of yet another trafficker fell apart.
He put the victim on fire. He caught her. He basically tortured this Canadian girl here in Canada.
She says the case hinged only on the victim's word against his, and Nagy soon realized there was a better way to bring down pimps.
Because of money, because of greed. That's the only reason why human traffickers do this. So why don't we find a way to take their money?
There's always a real face behind that transaction.
Now, FinTrack builds these charts to illustrate to police the flow of cash from a victim, known here as Stella. Through transfers and credit card payments, the funds end up in another account, depriving the woman of any income.
When you follow the money, you see where it ends up, and you see who's in control of that situation, who might be a suspected trafficker of Stella.
The technique has helped secure convictions, inspiring other countries to follow suit. And it all started here, secretive work to root out a crime that's both hidden and heinous. Thomas Dagley, CBC News, Ottawa.
A new campaign called Shoppable Girls is drawing attention to sex trafficking in this province.
It's better to talk about it than to pretend it doesn't happen, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here today, is to bring sex trafficking out of the shadows and put it in front of people's faces so that they can't look away and so that they can dig deeper into the conversation.
In storefront windows on Queen Street West, you might see the Maya and the Samantha, two personas of the Shoppable Girls campaign by Covenant House. It's in partnership with the Toronto Police Human Trafficking Unit, who estimates that sex trafficking is a billion-dollar industry in this country.
We're finding a big trend where young people are being recruited into the sex industry via social media platforms. And if they're vulnerable and there isn't a whole lot of parental supervision, things can go awry and one thing could lead to another.
The campaign aims to show that victims of sex trafficking can't always be recognized because the signs aren't obvious. They hope it builds awareness, educates, and prevents the crime from growing in Canada. Some residents in the Jane and Finch area aren't happy with the Toronto Police plan to install security cameras in their neighborhood.
I'm always against installing cameras and having them survey black and racialized, community members, young people.
Sam Tekel has launched a petition to stop the closed-circuit television cameras from going up in his community. A letter from police say they won't be actively monitoring the cameras. The data will be erased every 72 hours, and that footage will only be pulled if a crime occurs. While police haven't determined where the cameras will go, they say they did consult the public, something some residents say did not happen. In the meantime, community organizers say they'll be holding their own public meeting next month. A man convicted of drugging and sexually assaulting a woman has been freed on bail while he appeals his case, and it's likely a new trial will be ordered. Gavin McMillan was sentenced earlier this month to 9 years in prison. McMillan and Enzo de Jesus Carrasco were convicted in the 2016 sexual assault on a woman in the former College Street bar. Much of the hours-long assault was captured on security video. McMillan appealed the conviction, claiming the judge erred in his interpretation of a new federal law about jury selection. In granting bail today, a justice said McMillan's case for appeal is so strong that it borders on certainty. Under the terms of his release, McMillan will remain under house arrest. Canada's top court will hear a federal appeal in the alleged Via Rail terror plot. Raya Jasser and Shahab Essagaya were found guilty of terrorism charges in 2015 after being accused of plotting to derail a Via Rail passenger train in the GTA. Both men are currently serving life in prison, but a lower court granted the pair a new trial last August because of a jury selection mistake. That decision will now be reviewed by the Supreme Court of Canada. Sentencing was handed down today in a case that triggered a revolt within the U.S. Justice Department. Roger Stone, a longtime ally of Donald Trump, was ordered to serve 3 years and 4 months behind bars, to quote the judge, for covering up for the president. For now, he's still a free man, pending his request for a new trial. Katie Simpson explains.
Traitor! Unfazed by the taunts, Roger Stone arrived at a Washington court to learn his fate, to learn his punishment for lying to Congress, which hindered the investigation into Russian election interference. Justice Amy Berman Jackson sentenced Stone to 3 years and 4 months in prison, far less than up to 9 years prosecutors originally demanded. Jackson took more than 2 hours to explain her decision, saying Stone's actions were a threat to our most fundamental institutions, and the dismay and the disgust at the attempts by others to defend his actions as just business as usual in our polarized climate should transcend party.
These radical leftists are out of control, Alex.
Stone's former co-workers who operate in the world of smear politics aggressively defended their friend with a show in front of the cameras.
This case has been a magnet for conspiracy theorists, and outside the courthouse today, an online alt-right broadcaster tried to seize the moment, demanding a pardon for Roger Stone.
A pardon appears to be something the president is at least considering.
And I'm following this very closely, and I want to see it play out to its fullest because Roger has a very good chance of exoneration, in my opinion.
Trump issued pardons to nearly a dozen other people on a range of crimes earlier this week, though he has not committed either way to his friend's case.
What happened to him is unbelievable. They say he lied. But other people lied too.
Trump's continued comments about this case have triggered a raging battle at the Department of Justice. Attorney General William Barr publicly complained that Trump's words make his job harder to do. But Barr also asked the judge here to consider a lighter sentence, prompting the original prosecutors involved to quit. Stone left court uncharacteristically quiet, eager to see if his old friend Donald Trump, who he did so many favors for, will return one for him. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
The room filled with Mahler and Gershwin as this next violinist played Surgeons Got to Work. We'll tell you how her passion for music helped doctors perform brain surgery. This incredible story coming up. also coming up some incredibly warm weather for this time of year, Nick Cirkovich.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still stuck on the violin, though. Like, I think if I was having brain surgery, I would want to be out. I don't think I'd want to be there for it.
It's an interesting story. You got to listen to it.
Yeah, very cool stuff. Anyway, I look forward to it. Also looking forward to the warm weather. You know, we've been spoiled this winter because really it's been quite mild. We've had a couple of cold days, and of course now we're complaining. But those cold days and the cold nights are disappearing. We're getting into a weekend warm-up. We're also expecting to see some more sunshine in the forecast moving through the next couple of days. Right now, we're sitting at current temperatures of -7 degrees in the city of Toronto. Gets colder, though, as you head further north into the east as well. You factor in the winds. Now, the winds aren't too strong. They're approaching about 20 kilometers per hour. Out of the northwest, and then, of course, northwest, the colder winds. It does make for a wind chill that feels a little bit colder. Feeling like -15 in the city of Toronto right now, -19 in Barrie, and that'll continue through tonight. In fact, it's actually going to drop some more, partly due to the clearing sky cover. Those snow squalls that we talked about, they are slowly dissipating. We've got partly cloudy skies through tonight. It does clear out, though, for tomorrow, and then we've got sunshine in the forecast for tomorrow, and that continues right through until Saturday. Saturday, look for a mix of sun and cloud as this shifts down. However, the temperatures will continue to warm. So straight sunshine tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud heading into the weekend. The winds shifting out of the southwest as well. So tomorrow afternoon and evening, a little bit on the gusty side. Winds gusting about 40 kilometers per hour, and by the evening, likely closer to about 60 kilometers per hour. But with the southwesterly breeze, it ushers in some warmer weather for us heading into the weekend. So that's the good news in all of this. Forecast-wise tonight, still down to -11 with the wind chill feeling like about -19. Tomorrow, look for highs of 1 degree, and that comes under sunny skies. Wind gusts, though, as I mentioned, picking up, especially through the afternoon. But Saturday, Sunday, mix of sun and cloud, highs to 3 and 6 degrees. Our overnight lows getting a little better as well. Next chance for seeing any sort of weather, if you will, is Monday night into Tuesday. We're looking at rainfall and the potential after Tuesday for a little bit of snow. But we'll get to that when we get there next week.
Next week. Thank you, Nick.
You bet.
This weather update is brought to you by Fairmont Le Chateau Frontenac, the best location for your next spring break getaway in Quebec City.
This week in 1991, the brand new Terminal 3 at Pearson Airport opened to passengers.
Opening day, isn't it? But oh, aren't I lucky? Because, you know, the chances of this happening is great.
Canadians are going to be darn proud of this terminal. They're going to brag about it around the world.
Sure beats Terminal 1.
At the time, Terminal 1 could sustain 3 million passengers a year, but was dealing with 9 million.
As a businessman traveling, I find it very uncomfortable.
You just have to find a spot on the floor and read a book. That's the only way to pass the time. And don't look at your watch, or it'll go slower.
Terminal 3 was the first privately developed, owned, and operated airport terminal in Canada.
And we went out to private enterprise and said, build us a terminal, and they sure did.
I think it's fantastic. It's really nice to come into a clean atmosphere. It's fresh, it's airy.
If you're traveling and you really want to get something of quality at prices that are, reasonable, you can come to Trillium Terminal 3 and you'll find those things here.
As part of opening day, developers and politicians put a time capsule with memorabilia inside the base of this large clock. It is set to be opened in 2051. There are new research into the possible causes. There is new research possible into the possible causes of childhood asthma. A Canadian study suggests frequent exposure to household cleaners can increase the risk of developing the disease. Karen Pauls brings us this look at the problem and some potential solutions.
The first thing, you just got to get your nose clip on. Okay.
9-year-old Laura Zucchelli comes in every few years for a battery of tests.
Deep breath, deep breath, deep breath. Blast! Perfect. All the way to the 6. Keep going.
Diagnosed
keep going.
with asthma as a toddler, she deals with the limitations every day.
Sometimes when I'm running, it gets hard to breathe, and so then I have to stop and take a break, and most of the time I can't participate in sports that I would like to.
Researchers have crunched some of the data provided by Zucchelli and more than 2,000 other children across Canada. They found by the age of 3, nearly 8% of children living in homes where cleaning supplies were used frequently had asthma. That's compared to 5% diagnosed from homes that use low amounts of products. That includes air fresheners, antimicrobial hand sanitizers, dish and laundry detergent, and oven cleaners. The relationship between exposure and respiratory problems is higher for girls than boys.
We need to think more about the products that we're using in our homes around children. There really should be products without a lot of chemicals, if any chemicals, and certainly fragrance is a no-no.
The findings suggest small changes could help reduce the risk of asthma. For example, avoiding air fresheners and anything you spray into the air.
So it's not just what's in these cleaners, but how they're being used. And the sprayed and aerosolized products are particularly an area that we want to focus on.
But it's often not so easy to figure it out. Canadian and American manufacturers don't have to list the ingredients on consumer cleaning products. Compare that to the European Union, where labels have to warn if there are potential toxic ingredients.
Kind of ironic, isn't it? You think you're keeping a clean environment when actually you're not doing yourself any favors, are you?
Michael Zucchelli wishes he'd known this when Laura was a baby.
So instead of using spray bottles or aerosol, which I typically don't, but instead of spraying onto a window with Windex, for instance, or a mirror or something, just put it onto a cloth instead and clean it that way. That way nothing's getting in the air.
Suck it in, hold your breath. 1.
The good news is that most children outgrow their asthma symptoms by the time they get to school.
Did it work? Yeah. You feel the difference already?
Karen Pauls, CBC News, Vancouver.
You may have seen a remarkable video this week of a musician playing her violin while undergoing brain surgery. Her playing helped surgeons make sure nothing went wrong during the operation. She's now back at home, and Briar Stewart went for a visit.
Dagmar Turner has spent years developing the precise and speedy movements required to play the violin. She's part of the orchestra on Britain's Isle of Wight, but last month delivered a most unlikely solo in an operating room in London, serenading surgeons while they carefully worked to remove a tumor from her brain.
Fantastic.
The video of the operation has been widely shared, but she's barely seen it. Do you remember all of this?
Nothing, no.
Doctors had asked if she wanted to be awake during surgery. The practice has become more common as it allows surgeons to monitor movement and speech, helping to prevent inadvertent damage to parts of the brain that control motor function.
It was clearly the most promising method to achieve what I wanted to achieve. Quality of life, and good quality of life for me means to be able to play the violin.
Surgeons have operated on patients before as they've played instruments. It was even part of an episode of Grey's Anatomy. Turner had seen a video online, which is why she suggested bringing her violin.
So she put the challenge and said, look, what if I play the violin so you can ensure that my abilities to do so continues? And when a patient throws you a challenge like that, as a surgeon, we've got to be creative and find a way of doing this.
Dr. Kiomars Ashkan understood her passion. He holds a music degree alongside his medical one, and the team planned the surgery to accommodate her music.
We wanted her to wake up in a position that she could already handle a violin and start playing.
The bow was another issue.
I kept poking somebody in my way with a bow. I didn't realize it was Professor Ashkan I kept poking.
The doctors told her they were able to remove 95% of it, a huge relief, alongside the joy that comes with her ability to keep playing. Briar Stewart, CBC News on the Isle of Wight.
Just incredible. It's a scandal that's already overshadowing the upcoming baseball season.
It's sad for baseball. You know, it's tough. You know, they cheated.
Players are outraged. The commissioner is being accused of being out of touch, and we're still weeks away from opening day. We'll bring you that story coming up. Baseball's return is more than a month away, but its latest scandal is threatening to overshadow the season. A month after the Houston Astros were punished for stealing opponents' signals, Jamie Strachan tells us players at spring training are demanding stronger punishment.
Spring training is supposed to be about fresh starts and new beginnings. Not this year.
It's snowballing. I think it's pretty obvious that, you know, whatever the commissioner thought he didn't do it very well.
Baseball's traditionally tight fraternity where players rarely criticize each other has been shattered. The game's biggest names not shy to share their opinion.
It's sad for baseball. You know, it's tough. You know, they cheated. And, you know, just I don't agree with the punishments. You know, the players not, you know, getting anything.
It's a level of anger that has surprised longtime baseball watchers.
The venom that's out there. I didn't see that coming. I thought there'd be a few guys popping off, but not everybody.
The Astros were fined a few $1 million and lost a couple of draft picks. Major League Baseball didn't suspend any players, and the team will keep its 2017 World Series title.
What should have happened was, you know, the commissioner vacated their championship, and then we move forward.
In some ways, it seems every time baseball's beleaguered commissioner tries to calm things, they get worse.
The idea of, you know, an asterisk or asking for a piece of metal back seems, you know, sort of a futile act. People always know that there was something about the 2017 World Series that was different.
You know, calling the World Series trophy a piece of metal. I mean, I don't know if the commissioner's ever won anything in his life.
It's been such a bungled PR effort, stars from other sports are offering advice. In a tweet, NBA superstar LeBron James says Manfred must listen to the players. If someone cheated me out of winning the title and I found out about it, I would be irate. With the regular season about 6 weeks away, for the Astros, this could get worse.
Once they're on the road, I think there's going to be taunting and booing, and I think they're going to have to raise security there just to, protect these players. I think it can be very nasty.
Not the fresh start baseball was hoping for. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
It is getting colder, but a warm-up is coming soon, according to Nick anyway. We'll check in with him after the break. Plus, we'll take you to a beignet making journey. Sorry, I'm getting hungry. Those look so good. It's going to warm up your tummy. All of that after this break. Yummy beignets. Last year, we brought you the story of a giant pearl and its Mississauga owner. Now his wish to share the gem with the world has come true, even if it has some people scratching their heads.
They don't know what it is. They think it's a sculpture of the pearl or a replica of it, but it's actually the real thing is here.
Tucked beside exotic cars, the 27-kilogram Giga Pearl is on display right now at the International Auto Show at the Metro Toronto Convention Center until Sunday. The pearl is about the size of a baby and worth an estimated $90 million US. For the first time, we're hearing what you think about it.
Wow, it's quite something.
I think it's amazing. It's really big.
The Pearl's owner, Abe Reyes, has also earned a new honor, recently being named to the Guinness World Book of Records. It's also caught the attention of international filmmakers. A movie was made in the Philippines that centers on the heist of the Pearl.
$90 million.
Yeah, there's not many of us on the planet that could afford it, but anyway.
I expected to see a little bit more security around there.
Yeah, there's one guy
They're probably there, you just can't see them, right?
Exactly. You're not getting out of the auto show with it.
Yeah.
What we are getting out of is this cold that we're getting.
I know. It's funny we love to complain about the weather, right? Anyway, it's a little bit less than seasonal right now. Minus 11 degrees is where we're headed for tonight. By tomorrow, though, we're up to 1 degree, and then it gets better into the weekend. And tomorrow, a lot of kids off school as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, sorry to remind you, but anyway, maybe you can get outside with them or something. It looks like it'll be a nice day.
All right, I'll be at Queen's Park at noon with the teachers. Catch us online for that. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight after the National at 11. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. Have a great night, everybody.